Hello and welcome to episode 6 now. Today is June 27th, and in this episode we're going to wrap up, or do our best effort to wrap up, incident management. We've spent the last 2 weeks now, covering all of the various components of the incident form field. We understand that we have not covered every little nook and cranny, and we probably won't get to that today. But we're hoping to cover most of what you'll need to know to be proficient using incident management for logging tickets. Our live stream is up. You can send us an email if you have any questions at askservicenow@ucdavis.edu, and a quick review of our agenda. Working below additional comments and work notes, we're going to be looking at the activity feed, where we also talk a little bit about headers, the attachment functionality of an incident record, as well as related records and resolution information. And if Kevin can think of anything that we haven't covered, I'm sure he'll mention it, as he's going to do an awesome job with talking about all of the nuances of activity feed.
Well, thank you.
You got it. All right, so let's get right into it. Here we have an existing ticket that I have been working with Brian, and we talked about moving down below the work notes, and this is that activity feed. Kevin's going to talk about all the nuances of it momentarily. All I'm going to do is just show you this tab. You may recall last week where we talked about enabling that tab functionality, gear wheel in the upper right hand corner, settings, forms, and then tabbed forms. I really like it. Otherwise, that email header would be just buried in here. It would be tricky to find. That email headers, for those of you that are savvy to what headers are pretty self-explanatory here. It is rare that you will need to reference these, but the functionality exists to where you can. It's one of those, you have it in the quiver, but you may not need it functionalities of ServiceNow. Kevin, take it away with activity feed.
Alrighty, so we talked last week about the importance of work notes and additional comments and how that communicates with our customers. Where those get updated is the second component to this. So below that, we have activity here. And this starts from a newest to oldest order. And this is going to include everything that happens to this ticket. And usually it's going to start off with creation information. Basically, if it's an email, it's going to contain an additional comment to start off with as what's been emailed into the system. If it was created within ServiceNow by a technician, it's going to contain that information. In this case, as the example, you can see that this very first entity here was an object created by Brian Rose himself. And then the work notes in sequence thereas. Now, I can see that just by looking at this, I can see that Jason has some of the filter options for the activity changed from the default. Now the default is all on. Looks like he's got some of his message send receive hidden. And we're going to look up here at the very upper right hand corner of the activity feed to the filter icon. And well, no, I guess he does have it on. I guess this ticket is not sending. Why is that not showing up?
We are in a test instance.
Oh, right.
Is that going to be problematic for what we're showing?
It shouldn't be too bad. Just note that in between all of these additional comments and work notes, what's going to show up is going to be markers that say that yes, this additional comment, or yes, this work note was emailed to these people on the incident.
All right, well, hold on. I think that that's helpful to have.
Okay.
So let's do that. I will probably give you a different ticket because that Brian Rose ticket is resolved in prod.
Okay, so yeah, here we go.
Helpful? There you go.
Yeah. This shows our examples right off the bat, and we'll go down to the bottom. Well, this is a good long one. Okay, so system, email received. So we got an email in for this one. And one of the important markers for these updates in the activity feed is there's a show details hyperlink here. And what this does is this expands the original email in the format in which it was received, as opposed to being shown in a plain text structure as an additional comment. And then we're going to scroll up here a little bit to find, okay, so Jason had responded in the additional comments here, and we can see the very first system update that ServiceNow has sent an email with this subject line from the UC Service Desk to, in this case, the person who originally emailed in this incident. These are important records to show back and forth the thread in which the communication is occurring. In this case, you can see this gets really long-winded. So some people will go to a filters up here, and they'll turn off the send receive emails. And now we've got a much reduced communication thread because that back and forth is hidden. Of course, now if you're looking for specific information, you can go in here and you could select everything, or you could actually unselect everything and say, well, I'm interested in only what work notes Jason has put in here. And in this particular one, there hadn't needed to be any work notes. Or you can do, was there incident state changes? Yes, there were. Was there configuration item state changes? There was not. There was just the original. So that is, in a nutshell, the activity feed and the filters that manage it, as well as the email show details. Next, what we're going to be moving on to is attachments within an incident. And I'm going to jump back to our test environment here, just in case we run into issues. And we're going to draw our attention to the very top bar of the incident. Now, this bar stays visible at all times. It's anchored to the top of the incident. And you'll see the paperclip traditional sign for an attachment. And we're going to open this interface, and it's going to give us the option to choose files. Now, this particular incident doesn't have any attachments sent in by the customer, so there's none here. So we could choose files, and I'm going to choose a test zip file here that Jason has kindly created. And it's going to update that, and now that's attached to the incident. If you wanted to remove it, you select the link and you remove it, and it removes it from it. There is a 25 megabyte limit to attachments in ServiceNow. There is file types that are not allowed, examples being exe and more importantly .eml, which are email messages. A lot of times attachments will get a little busy, especially if you have individuals in your unit who have signature images, because those are treated as attachments with email messages. So a lot of times if someone has, they're in marketing and they love their signature images, you're going to see image 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's just going to be Facebook link images and their UC Davis department picture or things like that, and that will show up in attachments. So attachments, other than that, not a huge amount different than you would see in a normal email application. I'm going to go ahead and now talk about related records. An incident can be related to other types of records in ServiceNow. The most important one is a parent-child relationship with other incidents. Related records is its own tabs right next to email headers. And here is where you can assign another incident to be the parent for this incident. So any changes on the parent incident can be mass updated to all of the child incidents. If this ticket is a parent, you will see the number of child incidents it has listed here. If an incident alert has been created off of this incident, you will see this option checked here. External system number is not tied to anything, it's just an open text field. And the other fields over here tie to other records within ServiceNow. Those are relatively self-explanatory. I'm going to go ahead and hand this back to Jason. He's going to be talking about how resolution information is stored with the incidents. Jason, take it away.
Excellent. Thanks, Kevin. Before I jump into resolution information, I was thinking about something that we hadn't previously discussed on our agenda, but is somewhat relevant and helpful, and that's templates. When Kevin was talking about attachments, it got me thinking about templates, and it's this more options here where you can toggle the template bar and you can see that you have templates available. Templates by default are not created for you. These are templates that the team at IT Express has created based on frequency of calls, reduction in repetition, that they leverage to ensure consistency of answer, consistency of documentation, and ultimately there's only so many times in a given day that you can tell someone via email how to reset their passphrase, and having to type that every single time might actually be the definition of insanity. So, for example, and I won't go too much into templates, but you can see here admissions passphrase reset. I understand that that's not relevant for this particular ticket, but if I click that template, what it will do is there are criteria that fire here, and I specifically picked this one because I knew it would throw us an error message, and it tells you what it's trying to do. And in this case, this template is setting a category, subcategory, configuration item. I won't read them all off, but you can see that this is very helpful if you have a situation where you routinely are logging similar tickets. Worst case scenario, the template gets you 80% of the way there and you fill in the remaining dynamic 20%. It's still better than having to set all of these fields. If your team does not use templates, I encourage you to consider it, to enable the template editor role, I think it's called, Kevin.
Correct.
And that will give you and your team the ability to use templates. Word of caution on templates is that when you make them for the group, everyone can see them in the group. So be careful that you don't have a situation where you have so many templates that you can't find the one template you're looking for. All right, moving on to related information, and let's see if we can find a resolved ticket. Otherwise, this is going to be a very short demonstration. And I'm going to use you, Mr. Kim. And not the best example because in this case it wasn't closed by a person. This is one of those things I guess we should better stage our examples before we decide to hit go live now on YouTube. But yeah, anyways, we'll fix it in season 2 here. What we're looking for is what was resolved, when it was resolved, who resolved it, and any sort of information. This is helpful so that if there's a situation where you had a ticket that was suddenly resolved, and you don't know why, you could go in and see this information. A lot of this information is pre-populated and read-only by the system. So I could see that Kevin actually went in and closed this ticket on me. Hopefully, he left information on why he did that. But if he hadn't, I would at least know what happened with it, and then I could follow up with him, chat with him, to figure out why did he resolve that ticket. And that also ties back into the discussion that Kevin had with related records. When you resolve a parent, you have the ability to also resolve all of the children at the same time. It's a functionality called mass resolve. We won't go too much into that because I think honestly a lot of people don't use it. It can get you in trouble because if you write something personal to the parent, all of the children are going to see that email. If you're curious about using the mass resolve functionality of ServiceNow, please send an email to itsm@ucdavis.edu and someone will work with you to make sure you understand how it works, when to use it, and what it actually does. The last thing you want to do is send some PII to one person, or even if it's not PII, but it's personal information, and suddenly 20 people get that email. I think we can all agree that that's a responsibility that we don't want to have here. That actually covers our original agenda, even with my addendum. Kevin, as we're about to kind of close the book here on incident management, and we still have a couple minutes left, are there anything any fields, any topics, any issues that you can think of that we haven't covered that would be helpful to someone who is maybe brand new with the tool, or maybe a tips and tricks thing that you thought of?
I think we've done a really good job covering the bases for a lot of things. When you brought up the templates, I was kind of rolling a scenario around in my head, and there is one thing to make note of. When it comes to editable fields in an incident, especially plain text fields like work notes or additional comments, the templates are not additive. If you spend 10 minutes writing up an awesome email and you go to add a template and it has something that wants to insert into the additional comments, you can kiss that email goodbye. It will overwrite your text, and you can do undo on the template addition, but it's going to dump whatever text you had in that field as if there was nothing in there. So just, if you do use templates and you do choose to have those templates modify work notes and additional comments, just kind of user beware, be careful what you've already entered in.
Okay. So definitely do template first and then tweak.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think then that pretty much concludes our incident management series. I'm undecided on where we're going to move next. I know Kevin's super awesome when it comes to reports, and I think that might be where we move next. I think that's related best to incident management.
I would agree.
I think it's important to cover, and I think honestly it's an area that a lot of people would use if they knew how to use it better. So I think next week we may give Kevin the reins here to really start to deep dive into reports. Maybe 2, maybe 3 episodes. We'll see how it goes. Certainly at least 2. There's just no way in 15 or 20 minutes that we could do reports justice. So look for that if you're curious about reports, reporting, metrics, analytics. There's so much capability that the tool has, so we're hoping to really tap that, and Kevin's the best guy for that. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks for joining us. Kevin?
We're good. Everyone have a great week.
Awesome. Thanks so much.